Well, here we are, the last race of the season, unless you made the playoffs, of course. It is a sprinters race around Lutece Express, which may not be how they pronounce it pronounced it in ancient Rome, but there we go. So A's B's do 6 laps of this short course, and C's D's do 4 laps of the course. So it's not a short one by the end of the day. There is one sprint, so FAL and FTS on that sprint, and of course points for the finish position. 3 power-ups, the aero helmet, the steamroller, and the feather, and we'll talk about where they get used as we go through. And bike choice, this is aero all the way. It's cobbles all the way around here, but a gravel bike is not going to be better than an aero bike as you go through here, so just be careful of that. Just want to say this is the last race of the season. I've had an amazing time. I managed to race a couple of times, got COVID in the middle, and DS'd a whole bunch, and we'll talk about the DS in a few seconds as we go through. Let's just jump on to the DS notes, and I'm not going to leave these on here for more than a second or two because you know what to do. Best way to consume them is to download them, but what I will say about these DS notes is the way this course works, it's quite hard to get very precise mile markers as the laps go around. So because of pen differences and all kinds of things. So what I've got here is your lead-in distances and then the distances around each lap. The thing about this, and we'll talk about it when I get to the strategy slide, the thing about this particular lap, it's very easy to navigate. So you really just need to know it's flat. You get the underpass, it's largely flat again. You get the hill, the sprint, and the finish. And when you're going around there time after time, you will really very quickly know precisely where you are. That's what I think anyway. I want to say a huge thank you to every contributor through the whole of this ZRL season or ZRL season. So here are the list of names that we are scrolling through now. And of course, as I always say, that is not the only way or even the first way to help out the channel. First, tell your friends, like the video and subscribe to the channel, download the notes. And when you've done all that, feel free to buy Sherpa Dave a coffee. All right. I told you that I've been DSing and I'll DS twice this final game, this final race. Once for those in the UK early evening and once for those in the US early evening. And I will post links to both of those. Hopefully they'll be in the top corner right now if you want to sign up for those. And now let's take a look at the specifics on this lap. And I kind of talked you through it on the DS page, but do bear in mind you've got a full half a lap and go through the sprint before you hit the start-finish gate. It is a 3.5 kilometer lead-in. You will not have a power-up for that first sprint. The underpass, you can see it on the profile view down at the bottom, and that underpass is, I think a bunch of people will try and stretch things out there, make a leap for it, but it's not going to do you any good because you're so far from anything. So I think the best bet is just to stick with the pack. Just a word on power-ups. I think that you really want to save your the power-up you get at the start-finish for the hill if you have the feather, or right as you approach the sprint if you have the steamroller or the aero helmet. And then the one you pick up at the end of the sprint, use quickly because you will get another one very shortly when you go through the start-finish gate. And then the last point, count those laps. There's no lap counter here, so you need to know what lap you're on and how many you have to go. Then I would say the other thing on the finish, that last 400 meters is very slightly uphill, so be careful of that. Let's just jump into the lap itself. Out of the pens, and it's a very slight downhill before we hit the bump up to the Arc de Triomphe. It is 6.6 kilometers altogether. Half of it is flat, half of it is up, half of it is down. That's a bit trite, but it's also not too far out. So we're on the climb now. On the lead-in, it's a 1 kilometer climb up to the Arc de Triomphe. It varies from flat to 4%, but averages 2% as you go up here. I've walked up the Champs-Élysées from about where the pens are to the Arc de Triomphe. I swear it's not as steep as it feels going up here when you're pedaling. Maybe someone who lives in Paris can comment down below and tell me whether it really is. You know you're approaching the end of the hill because as we pass the sprint marker here, the sprint gate there, it's going to back off pretty quickly. You can see it's just at 1% now. And from here it's flat around the Arc de Triomphe. Now if you're competing for the sprint on any of the laps or on the lead-in, you want to be careful where you get going because you want to go relatively early. It's also a fairly difficult to spot sprint starter. So watch these zebra crossings. 1, 2, there's the sprint. And so you're on the sprint now and you can see that it is a false flat downwards. Most people think it's downhill, but it is a false flat. And the hill actually kicks in as you go through the sprint. So you'll pick up speed. And here we go. The last 400 meters is actually very slightly uphill. And then it flattens out for the last 200 of those 400, and we cross the line and we're on the lap. First 1.2 kilometers of the lap is flat. That's until we get to the underpass. We're just approaching one of the kilometer markers, and it's worth pointing out to you guys so you remember that what I have done here is I've marked the kilometers from the start-finish gate as we're going round the complete lap. So it's a 6.6 kilometer and we have lap, and we have just finished the first kilometer of that. As we go around the bend here, we go through the underpass 150 meters down, and then 150 meters back up at 3%. As I said, I'm sure somebody's going to make a jump for it at that point. Just stay with them. There's not going to anything to be gained from really doing that. So we are now running up the side of the River Seine, and you may have pointed out, or you may have seen a mast on a sailboat, which is just a bit weird and tells me that nobody at Zwift HQ is a sailor, or nobody has actually taken a sailboat up the River Seine, which I did in my teens, because you can't get through any of these bridges if you have a sailboat with the mast up. So there you go. I'm sure they'll get right on that and change it. As we go around this bend, it starts to undulate slightly. It's still mostly flat, but there are some ups and downs. There we go, hit 3% there. And as we come past the pens, we have that slight dip for a couple of 300 meters. There it is before we start the climb proper up to the Arc de Triomphe, which we can see all the way from where we are now. So that's 1 kilometer away. This climb averages 2%, but it does get up to 4% in some places. Here's our 4 kilometers of 6.6. So we're over halfway through the lap. Steepest part is from here to the sprint gate that you can see on the other side. And then it backs off slightly. It's mostly flat around the arch, and this is really all set up for your sprint. So you'll probably be winding up around now. And let's carefully go through that starting point for the sprint again. You're going to count your zebras. So there's 1 zebra, 2 zebras. Sprint starts now. 220 meters. Slightly downhill on the cobbles. And then the hill starts as we go through it. You'll have picked up another power up, so make sure you use it between now and the start-finish gate. 1 kilometer down, this time minus 2%. So speed will definitely be picking up, particularly towards the end of the race. 600 meters to go, that's 200 downhill, 200 very slightly uphill, 200 flat. There we go, flattens out now. And we're across the line. As always, I will leave you with the DS notes and the other various bits and pieces. This is the last of these for the season, and I will see you next season. Right on, everybody.